Hey guys, so I went through these numbers several times to ensure that they were correct, but there's a chance I may be off, so feel free to go back and double check yourself. But with that side of the business out of the way, let's get into the video. So who is the true DBU? When it comes to the title of DBU, there are several universities who have tried to claim the name. According to Chris Fowler, during his interview with Grant Delpit when he received the Jim Thorpe Award, LSU, Florida, Oklahoma, and USC all have a claim for the title. But Alabama, Ohio State, Miami, Florida State, Virginia Tech, and Texas have also attempted to claim the name, although Ohio State has altered their claim from DBU to BIA, Best in America. But still, when it comes to the NFL and college football, who is DBU? Well, to find out, let's first start with the basics. Unanimous All-Americans. By my count, since the year 2000, the low teams on the list are Virginia Tech, Florida State, and USC. Then come the next four: Florida, Texas, Miami, and Oklahoma with 4 apiece, followed by Ohio State with 6, then Alabama with 8, and at the very top sits LSU with 10. When it comes to awards, only Alabama and LSU have defensive backs who have won the Chuck Bednarik Award, an award given to college football's best defensive player. LSU has 2 winners in Tyrann Mathieu and Patrick Peterson, and Alabama has 1 in Minkah Fitzpatrick. But only Oklahoma has defensive backs who are recipients of the Bronco Nagurski Award during this century, in Derek Strait and Roy Williams. When it comes to the Jim Thorpe Award, the award given to the nation's best defensive back, LSU again appears at the top of the list with 3 players, followed by Texas and Oklahoma, who each have 2. Then finally, Alabama, USC, and Ohio State each have 1 player who have won the award. Then when it comes to the Heisman Trophy, the award of all awards in college football, while none of the teams have Heisman winners at defensive back, both LSU and Oklahoma have players who have received Heisman votes. LSU with Tyrann Mathieu in 2011 and Oklahoma with Roy Williams in 2000. Now stacking them all together, if we're counting strictly national awards, All-Americans, Chuck Bednarik Award, Bronco Nagurski Award, and the Jim Thorpe Award, LSU has the largest trophy case with 15 trophies, followed by Alabama with 10, then Oklahoma with 8, Ohio State and Texas are tied with 6, then USC, Miami, and Florida each have 4, then finally it's Florida State with 2, and Virginia Tech with 1. Now if we're talking about the best performing secondaries over the years, we have several top 10 lists we can look at to get some indication, starting with completion percentage allowed, where Alabama's 2004 secondary is head of the class, but Miami has the most appearances on the list with 3 in 2001, 2002, and 2005. And LSU is next up with 2, 2003 and 2002, with Florida, Texas, Virginia Tech, and Oklahoma all making appearances on the list. Now, if we're talking about yards allowed, Alabama shows up again, this time first and second on the list, but Miami again has the lead with 4 appearances, followed by Virginia Tech, LSU, and Oklahoma, who all managed 1 showing on this list. Then finally, we have passing touchdowns allowed per game, and here we have an extended list of 15, where Florida and Alabama made 3 appearances, Virginia Tech and Miami made 2, and LSU, USC, Ohio State, Texas, and Florida State all appear once on the list. Now jumping over to the NFL, it all starts with the draft, and if we follow the order of least to most players drafted from each school, Oklahoma comes in last place with 15, then Texas, USC, Florida State, Alabama, LSU, Virginia Tech, Miami, and Florida are all tied, and finally, at the very top of the list, it's Ohio State with 30. Then if we're talking players taken in the first round, Ohio State again takes the lead with 11 picks, followed by Miami, then Alabama, LSU, Florida State, Florida, and Texas are all tied with 6, then USC and Virginia Tech with 3, and finally Oklahoma with 2. But when it comes simply to players who have played in the NFL, even if for a short period of time, LSU jumps back in front with 37 players when you account for players who are undrafted. Then comes Ohio State with 34, then Miami, Alabama, Virginia Tech, Florida State, Oklahoma, and USC, then finally Texas. But what about your career? Well, for all these teams, individuals with long careers make these numbers a bit misleading. But on average, Texas players, although they are the fewest in quantity, have had on average the longest careers with 5.13 seasons per player, followed by Ohio State, then Florida State, then Virginia Tech, then LSU, then Alabama, Oklahoma, Miami, and finally USC. Now when we're talking about the best of the best, starting with Pro Bowlers, Oklahoma has the fewest with 1 in Roy Williams. Then comes USC with their better 1 in Troy Polamalu. Then Texas has 3. Then come the Florida Gators with 4, followed by Virginia Tech with the more accomplished 4. Then Ohio State, who has 5. then Florida State's more decorated 5, then Miami's 5, who has even more appearances. Then comes Alabama's 6, then finally LSU's 7 total Pro Bowlers. As for all pros, Alabama sits atop the list with 5, followed by LSU, Texas, and Florida State, who have 4 apiece. Then comes Florida and Miami, Virginia Tech with 2, then Ohio State, USC, and Oklahoma all have 1. Then the final list we'll look at is the NFL 100, a group selected by the players that began in 2011. And to start out, we have USC with their lone player in Troy Polamalu, who made the list 4 times. Then we have Texas with their lone player Earl Thomas. Then Ohio State, who's had 2 players make the list, but neither of them got past 80th. Followed by Florida and their 2. Next up, Miami and their higher ranked 2. Then Alabama, who managed to get 3. Then Virginia Tech and their 3, led by Cam Chancellor. Then LSU's 3, largely led by Patrick Peterson. Then finally, Florida State's 3, who was the only team that managed to have more than one player appear on the list twice by my count. But after making this video, my final analysis is that Oklahoma and USC aren't really in the discussion for DBU. Texas can kind of be put in that same category, given how few players they have put in the NFL compared to everyone else. Then I'd say Miami, once upon a time, had a strong claim, but most of their damage was done early in the century. Florida State, Virginia Tech, Florida, and Alabama all have strong showings for their quality and quantity of players, but at the top, it probably comes down to Ohio State and LSU. Since the year 2000, Ohio State has been the most consistent at providing the NFL with quality talent and players who have had long careers, but their players have yet to reach the pinnacle like some other schools. And LSU has been the best at providing the NFL with the very few players at the top, but on average, their players' NFL careers have been less sustainable than other schools. But after providing all this data, I'd like for you guys to chime in, so I've linked a poll up above to see if we can come to some sort of consensus. So be sure to vote and chime in the comment, and I'll check you all later on You Must Be Out Your Mind. Peace out.